Yes, you read that headline correctly. A new Fable game is finally happening. Well, to be exact, it's been happening, we just finally found out about it. As you might expect, the reveal of the new Fable has longtime fans cheering all across the world, as their dreams of a new game in the series are materializing before their very eyes. As is commonly the case, information is limited. And since information is limited, what we can draw out from what we know is largely speculative. That said, there is plenty of information here for us to expect a healthy amount of reasonable things. As always, we'll largely be sticking to what we know and reasonable deductions from that, and trying our best to avoid baseless speculation. While some speculation might be needed to come to reasonable predictions and expectations, it's not the basis for them. Most importantly is a likely uptick in design for the series. While most Fable fans don't outright hate the third game, most would also admit it's not their favorite. But even from there, the second and the original haven't aged particularly well from a gameplay perspective. From cumbersome menu screens, obtuse navigation and traversal, and constant loading issues from poor optimization, they just don't pass the sniff test for many outside of the nostalgia bubble. Seeing as how the last game was way back in 2010, we've come a long way with standardization of certain things, and now that Fable has more of a blueprint for what to follow and inject their own flavor into from there, odds are the next Fable game will have an overdue fresh take of many of the clunkier aspects of the previous games. To add credence to this suspicion, just look at the developer Playground Games' most recent work with the Forza games. Clean menus with deliberate functionality are a wonderful thing. And while, of course, we don't necessarily want everything in a massive fantasy RPG to take its marching orders from the racing genre, a more streamlined menu system is something we can probably expect. Along with tedious menus and illogical hoops to jump through to do simple tasks, the previous Fable games also often suffered from weird absences of challenge and overpowered magic. Again, issues like this mostly come down to design and development prowess, which are things that Playground Games definitely have in spades these days. So, a far more polished, intuitive, and balanced experience is something that we can happily and reasonably expect from this next game. A rather important element that is immediately noticeable about this game is that it's simply called Fable, not Fable 4. This could be a placeholder, but with the amount of effort and thought that clearly went into the teaser trailer we saw, I'd be surprised if that's all it was. This new game could also be a soft revival of the series, kind of like 2018's God of War was, but it could also just as easily be a full-blown reboot of the series, scratching everything else and starting all over. With how the third game turned out and how the original developer fizzled, a complete reboot seems to make the most sense, but time will tell on that one. One thing that could lend credibility to the idea of it being a continuation is the city in the background seemingly taking quite a bit of creative guidance from Fable 2, but again, we'll have to wait and see on that. Before anybody gets their wallets out, another important thing to consider is that this game is likely fairly far off. From Playground Games clearly having their hands full with other projects over the last few years, delays in an incalculable amount of areas due to the pandemic, and the fact that Microsoft will definitely want to spend as much time as is needed to get every single nook and cranny of this game right, so they can finally have a response to Sony's Horizon series and Nintendo's Zelda, I wouldn't expect this game anywhere near the launch of the Series X. Late 2021 would be an optimistic expectation. And you know what? If that's what it takes to make sure the game turns out right, then that is 100% fine. Given that the game probably won't be out within the first year or 2 years of the Series X launch, it could very well be an exclusive to the system. While Fable is certainly no stranger to Microsoft exclusivity, there is the issue of Microsoft staggering out their early exclusives for the Series X, as Phil Spencer has stated that they intend to avoid locking most games to the Series X without an Xbox One version for as long as they can stand to, but If we're right about the game not being available for a couple more years, it could fall outside of that window and right into the lap of Series X exclusivity. If this is true, then that could imply all sorts of interesting things about the game taking full advantage of the system's power, but we'll cross that speculative bridge when we get to it. Another interesting thing we learned from the small amount of info we have is that this Fable game will indeed be available on Game Pass, further adding even more value to the little game service that could. This not only means that Game Pass is in for a healthy dose of new subscribers around the time Fable launches, but also is a sign that a lot of people are going to be playing it on day one, as Game Pass is quite popular right now and shows no signs of slowing down. This also could be great news for any multiplayer modes that they decide to incorporate, with plenty of full lobbies and dedicated players ready to share your experience. As we should be expecting from a game from the Fable series, the charm, wit, and dry humor that the series is known for does appear to be back in full force here. Fable might not be as well known for its humor as it is for other things, but those who have spent notable amounts of time with the series have become very aware that the Fable series never really takes itself too seriously, and it isn't afraid to take little jabs at itself, its characters, and its genre if they're warranted. Another, and perhaps the most important thing we should expect, are some massive changes to the formula. Whatever form those changes take is still largely a mystery, but if you're expecting to jump right in with the same mindset you had over a decade ago, odds are you'll be disappointed. I'm sure some things will resemble what we remember from the old games, but we are probably in for some massive modernizations and changes to the format. Keep in mind, it's been 10 years. Not only that, but these last 10 years have been particularly transformative for the medium in a number of ways that are likely to impact the design philosophy for Fable. Whatever the next Fable game has in store for us, rest assured, fans of the series have every reason to be excited for the next installment. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed and would like to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to ensure you'll be notified when new videos go up.